of all, I'm Mike Brown, the chief of police here in the APD. I want to say thank you for coming out tonight, especially given the prognosis and weather forecast. We really appreciate you being here. One of the things that we wanted to do is have a conversation, but before we get into that, I'd like to acknowledge a couple people who are here. We have Mayor Justin Wilson, and he's been interested in this for some time. He's asked a couple questions of me and of the department of what we're doing. We also have our city manager, Mark Jakes. Mark, thank you. He's here too. And so, but more importantly, you're here. And we wanted to chat a little bit about what we see in the neighborhood, what you guys see in the neighborhood, and we want to talk a little bit about how we collaborate and address some of the issues that are happening in the neighborhood. So we invited all the homeowners associations in this area, and much of the other folks in the community who we think might be able to help us. So thank you very much for being here. Okay? So what I'd like to do is I'd like to, first of all, before we get in, we don't want to make just presentations, we want to respond to questions. How many of you are aware of all the things that are happening in this part of town? Some of you are? All? Well, to set the record straight, what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about, I get a chance to pass the bucket to Don Hayes, our assistant chief who has field operations. He'll help us to talk about the overall things that we see. We have some ongoing investigations that we can...
Try now.
There we go. We have some ongoing investigations which we need your help on. And I'm going to ask Captain Monica Lyle, who has our criminal investigations division, to talk a little bit about that to the extent we can. And then we want to open it up to any questions that you may have about what we're doing, and in addition to that, what we should be doing to make you feel more comfortable and more at home in this neighborhood, okay? Does that make sense? Anything else we need to address that you have? Okay, let's start with this. Now, can I ask you to come up and talk a little bit about what you guys are experiencing and how you got the whole detail and some of those things you got on there?
Basically, you guys know that we've had some shootings in the area, and that's what we're really here to talk about, and what's happening in the neighborhood. And we actually, when we respond up here, we collect all the evidence we can, we make sure everybody's here, and we are in the process of investigating each one of those particular cases. And we actually have people of interest in those cases, but what we actually need is the people who actually saw that thing happen to come and help us to identify these people so that we can actually get them off the street. Our main concern is your safety, and we're not going to come up here and try to go into a lot of type of secret operations. We're going to come in and occupy your communities. We're going to work with you in your community. We're going to talk to you. That's why this whole town hall is put together, that you might ask us questions about what we're doing and how we're doing it and how we can, again, solicit your help so we can make sure that these neighborhoods become better. Again, most of you know me. I've been here for a long time. I don't plan on going anywhere. I walk up and down these streets all the time. And again, I just want to have a conversation with you to kind of tell me what do you want us to do in this neighborhood to make sure that it is the best neighborhood that you can live in. So again, we want you to ask us questions, but we also want you to participate and help us once this is over. This is not going to be a one-time deal. We're going to have a continuous dialogue with you all. We're going to come into your neighborhoods and sit down with you and find out what's going on. I know most of you know Officer Talaferro. He's been out there talking to you all about what's happening. Again, he's very, very familiar with what's going on in your neighborhood. He lives here, again. And so, if you don't feel comfortable talking with me when I come out there, please let him know what's going on. But we can't fix this. We can't fix it by ourselves, but we can definitely fix it together. And you know that. We've been working together for a long time. So, with that, I think you want Monica to talk about what we're doing in investigations. And then really, this is not a lecture. This is a conversation. We want you to, again, to talk to us so we can, again, talk to you and find out what's going on and how we can make this better.
Good evening. I'm not comfortable talking through my mask, so I'm going to pull it down for a few seconds. My name is Monica Lyle. I know I've met a few of you through the civic liaison meetings. I think it's back on. But I'm the captain that is over criminal investigations division. So right now we're dealing with multiple shootings in what's called Sector 1, which would be Andrew Atkins, James Bland, even down on Tansel Court, we've had some. Every time we have that, where there's shots fired, where we recover evidence, even when we don't recover evidence, some type of investigation is done. Now, the shootings that have happened over the past few months, we've assigned those out for investigation. We're trying to keep it with one particular detective so that when he goes out into the communities or gathers intelligence, he has that basis of information, okay? So right now that detective is Detective John Bertelli. He, in all of criminal investigations, has done an amazing job looking into these shootings. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of them, we have what we feel are decent suspects, but we don't have the community coming forward to tell us. We need more than what we have to go forward with it, to do any type of prosecution. We need the community's help. We need your help in order to make these communities safe and get that violent element out of the communities. So I'll urge you, if you know of anything, any information that you think would be helpful to our investigation, contact us. I'll give you my cell phone number that you can contact me directly. But we're here to help, and we can only do so much if we don't have that other information. If you have intelligence that you know things are going on in the community, any kind of chatter, that's the information we need shared, okay? That may help us take the investigation to the next level and be able to prosecute and get these folks off your streets and make your community safe for you and your kids, okay? I'm going to give it back, and then if you have any specific questions, I'll do.
Yeah, one of the things that Don has decided to do with my certainly agreement is when we have addressed additional patrol in this area, we've focused to make sure the officers are aware of, people that may be up to some trouble. We're not trying to jack anyone up, but we're trying to get in a situation where we're available as a deterrent. And we're putting some other officers in here on overtime to try and do the same thing. And with some help, we might be able to suppress anyone's idea to want to do something that's going to be detrimental to the community. We're not going to be knocking down doors or ousting people. Our job is to just try and get some security in the neighborhood where people don't see that kind of activity that Don described happening. So with that, I'm going to kind of show it up here and just answer or field any questions you folks may have. So anyone have a question they'd like to ask? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, my name is Donna Alexandria. I just, and I don't live in this, I live on right behind the police station. But I also, in July, I've been hearing gunshots. And so I live in between Wheeler and Early Street. And I know that going down Early Street this week, there's a park. And now there's a sign that says no firearms. Is that because of the increased shootings? Or because I've heard it around my area, and at first I thought it was fireworks because it was near the 4th of July. But a couple of weeks later, I was still hearing it. So I was wondering, was that a coincidence, or now I'm starting to see these signs that say no firearms?
Okay, let me kind of repeat. There you go. Let me try to repeat the question for everyone to hear. Down around Wall Street and everything else, by police headquarters, there's a park that actually has a sign that says no firearms. And that actually is not directly related to any kind of activity per se. It's directly related to the ordinance that the city's adopted for guns on city property. Now, we do know that we've had similar kind of shootings, but not on the frequency that we have here in different parts of the city. And we're investigating those along the same lines. And some of those actually relate, we think, to some of the ones that Monica was just talking about here in this community. So, again, if you see something, say something. I know it sounds like a real trite kind of thing, but that's where we're pleading for your help. And that's the reason for the sign. You'll see those in city property and parks all over the city. You're welcome. Another question? Yes, sir.
Where are these shooters coming from? If they're not always related to drugs and gangs and local folks, where are they coming from?
Well, we're not getting too far into it because it is under investigation. The cases are under investigation, but as I understand it, Monica, most of them are the local folks, or those kind of issues, the people who are local folks.
They're local people
And are they by and large using legal firearms?
We don't know that yet, sir. We don't know that. We have made an arrest or two on individuals in the city who have been engaged in that kind of activity, and those are closed cases. Those are not the ones we're referring to tonight.
I understand. But just to put it in perspective, in the small housing area that I'm the homeowners association president for, we have had in the last year one random gunshot victim wander into our neighborhood until we can get somebody there to take care of him. We've had shots fired that have entered 2 different houses and penetrated the apartment of one car, in addition to pinging off the walls of buildings. Just 2 nights ago, we had shot fired at 8:30 in the evening in the immediate vicinity where people walk their dogs routinely in the evenings, although that's becoming a less popular thing to do. And that's only 3 incidents I can think of out of 4 or 5 that occurred over the last year, Chief. Something's got to be done. And last time we had a meeting, you said we'd see more evidence of patrols and police in the area, bicycle patrols, maybe foot patrols. We've not seen that. At least that's what my residents who face North Fayette Street are telling me. So tell me if I'm wrong, but we really haven't seen much change in the year that this thing is sort of ramped up, and it was bad enough before then.
Okay. Now, you want to respond about some of the patrol response on it?
Sure. You know, we're going to see the patrol officers out here. As a matter of fact, we actually have officers assigned here in the neighborhood shift for a particular block of time. Can't really tell you the exact times. Again, there are certain things we have to just keep to ourselves. But the patrol officers are out here, and as a matter of fact, the shots fired the other night, Captain Alexandria was literally right there on the corner. And when he left, 10 minutes later, the shots went out and he was there. So again, the officers are out here, they want to be here, but I mean, whatever we've been listening, our officers are not in the ones people can see them, and so when they are in the area, they're probably not going to see what happening. But once they're living, that's what's going to happen. The old adage is, we never hear when a police officer can't be found when we need one. That's actually not a false statement, because when we're here, most of the time nothing's going to happen. But when we do leave, they're not going to leave, that's when we're going to do things. So the officers are here, and we're going to see them on bike patrol starting this coming weekend. It's not like on Saturday night, they're going bikes, and again, it's not raining. But they will be out here, and we do have officers on foot, and we'll be walking this particular area on Thursdays, well, I'll let you know that. On particular nights of the week, they will be out here.
And in line there, that's in addition to the regular patrol. That was that special operations that we had talked about. And I do recall a conversation last month on Harper Park Fairfax, and we're really concerned about what happened there. But the other difficult thing with these shootings is they're not occurring on a regular basis or a scheduled basis. They're happening at a variety of times, as we all know, which makes it difficult to pre-plan information. Now, I will say that if you have information that would help us in that respect, you need to let us know. Call us, please. We're not trying to make things difficult for people, but we're trying to stop this trend. Listen.
Just curious about the possibility of increasing levels of video surveillance.
We have a lot of video surveillance available from private sources and throughout this area of the city, in fact, all of the city for that matter. And people are very good about getting this stuff when they into commercial businesses in particular. Some of these are occurring in areas where there are blind spots, but are not covered by those kind of activities. We've had a conversation with some of the alcohol properties about somebody that I think putting some of that stuff around. But I understand we're also in the process of trying to see if we can expand some of that to get a little bit better coverage. That's a great tool after the incident. We like to, it helps us try to find people, but we like to stop it before it happens. And we need your help on that. Okay? Okay. I'm sorry. Excuse me. I'm sorry.
Hard to tell by the mask.
I know.
Is this, do you have insight as to whether this is localized or whether this is part of a broader problem in the region? Does this happen from local people, or there are people coming from outside the neighborhood to do this? And the second question is, well, the city keeps growing its population. The police department is not growing as fast as the city. Do you actually have the resources to provide the policing, or are you simply for a time robbing something else that needs the attention where the people aren't fighting so much up in arms to give us the attention? Do you really need more resources to get a handle on this?
Okay, let me take the second question first. We are blessed in a lot of ways by the city in terms of how we're funded. We don't have the vacancy rate we had 5-6 years ago. They give us the opportunity to get people trained and up to staff so we can be formally, ready to go when we're needed. So that's not the issue for us. Of course, it's always an issue come difficult budget discussions. And of course, the city's in one of those, but we're fine in terms of staffing and with the overtime that we can get through federal and other state grants. And that's how we're funding the special operation. That was the first question. In some cases, we can't tell. Most of the people we have are people of interest are locals. So this is an activity that's occurring in different parts of the city involving many local folks. Now, we did have some indication that there are some people outside. But I don't want to go any further into that because these are active investigations we're trying to work with. But do I see a pattern of behavior like you see in different parts of the country? I do not see that here. But we do think there may be some connectivity between some of them, and that's why we're asking for your help. Okay? Another question? I didn't step on the investigation. Did I not hear? Okay, just trying to make sure, because I already heard about it. Hold on again, yes.
I have been on Buell Street between Pitt and Gore. And on the 14th of this month, we had a senior beaten really bad on our street, and they only took his car and they left him laying there. And the family said they haven't gotten the car back and they haven't got any information on did y'all touch the people or do y'all know where they car at or they vehicle. But this is the first time anything ever happened on Buell Street like that.
I think they remember the case in our daily patrol report, but I don't know it specifically where it's at. Can I ask you to share with her at the end of the meeting and what's kind of exactly what information we need about in the case if you're a party of proper interest, we might be able to help you out. Okay? I would also say, you have a great point. It's not just the shootings. We've had some incidents involving assaults and batteries. We've had some incidents involving robberies. And another part of the city, in a very localized area, we're looking at some carjackings. And so we're very interested in those as well. But again, we need all your help to do that.
The Ewell Street, sir, that's a carjacking incident.
The Yule Street is assigned out to one of our detectives. It was a carjacking, and we are investigating that. I'm sorry? Okay, great. If you don't mind, I'll talk to you after this is over, if you can stay for a few seconds. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. And I see we have Keith here from that. Keith, thank you very much for being here. Appreciate that. Okay, questions? Anything else? Yes, sir.
Yeah, Chief. I'd like to go back to this issue of increased patrols. I mean, patrols are critical, as you said, to deterrence and also fast response. And you said you've increased them. And you don't want to tell us what the routes and times are, obviously, and you don't want to know that. But can you give us an estimate, or can you come back to us with a number of patrol hours in this area that have been increased? Have you increased it by, one guy on Tuesday nights, 8 hours, or 180 hours, or 360 hours? That's what I would like to specifically. Plus.
The question is, can you give us a number of these days? I don't want to give out the plan strategy, but I can possibly give you the hours that we're scheduling under this grant process, or at least Don can. Don, you have anything to look at?
During the course of the week, it will be anywhere from 2 to 3 officers. And I would say as far as hours are concerned, we're looking at, not to get my math in my head right now, we're looking at probably, I would say over 60 to 70 hours a week. So, at different time frames, but 2 to 3 officers out there. Now, that's in addition to the regular patrols that we actually have in the area, and also with Officer Talaferro being here also. So it's a significant use of resources that we have in the city as far as our officers are concerned. And so it's a lot of deployment that we believe is needed right now, and that's why we're bringing it here. And you would also see, if I'm not going to stop on Shannon's toes, some of the cops officers are also coming in to assist Officer Talaferro. They have different neighborhoods throughout the city, but they too will be deployed in this particular area during these times, at certain times.
I live in Andrew Atkins, and I am very familiar with Officer Talaferro. He does a great job. However, at nighttime, you see 2 or 3 cop cars parked up in the parking lot at the post office or at the lighting place, while they're not stationed where these highly gun areas are, where the shooting transpired, right here in James Glen. Instead of parking in the post office, park in James Glen. One in the alley, one on the street. Same thing at Andrew Atkins. Run them away from here. So hopefully they'll get it. If they can't hang up here, they'll go somewhere else.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I mean, I already stopped there, but, the Don deals with the captains in terms of the patrol coverage, and we'll relay your information back. The key is to be out and about in the community. Now, they may have been doing something like a report or something, but I can't speak to that, but I understand the perception. I get that, believe it or not, at different locations at different times, and occasionally we get complaints and we investigate. In some cases, there's a legitimate reason for doing it, but that doesn't sell to the public. So we'll take a look at that, and we'll talk about that with our patrol captains to make sure that they keep our people aware of it. Don't disagree with me.
It's happening way too often with the shooting, whether you're getting shot or not. I'm on a community app, and that's a lot of conversation. That was a hot topic the other day about the shooting. My thing is, as a community, if we're trying to do away with all of this, then let's really work together. You're asking tenants to come to you guys and say, hey, I saw Justin shoot Aaron. But who's going to protect the migrant?
No.
I still have to have somewhere to live for me and my kids. Who's going to say that he is part of Justin's crew and he's not going to come after me? Or my kids?
We understand that, and that's one of the reasons why we're out here trying to build everyone to work together and take the criticism that you offer up to. So it's not going on deaf ears. Okay? Did you want to add anything on that?
No, she's right. Your point is well taken, and we already said that. We know that, okay, and the officers do be there, because we want them in the area, but we want them to be more actively in the area. So they're located, they're still going to be here, but just moving around, and some of them have specific times where they have to get out of their cars at night and really walk into these neighborhoods. So we'll see that.
But as long as one of them is visible, especially in high times, like after 6 o'clock or during the daytime, and you riding past as a police officer, and you see 4 boys standing in front of the corner store, but on the other side, get out your car, don't ride past. Get out your car and find out what they're doing.
We're out here to address the right, and we're going to address that.
And I'm here to keep seeing it. Let us know. Okay?
Oh, I don't see, I live in Andrew Atkins, and where I live, I don't see it. And I don't come up this way very often, because I don't have to, thank the Lord. But I'm just saying, I want to speak on behalf of other people who don't speak or who won't come out for me.
Right. And I appreciate what you're saying, and I'm serious. So if you guys see something out there that doesn't look right, or we should be doing, and they're not doing right, you got to tell us, okay, so we can go ahead and correct that. We want them in the community, we want them connected, we want them to do, not only just driving around and showing the door, that doesn't get you there. You got to get out there and talk to people and listen to people. And that's been communicated to folks that are here. And our hope is that it happens. If it doesn't, you need to let us know, please.
I need your number.
I think you know that. Okay, who else has a question? Anyone? Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question. I'm hearing that the only answer I've heard so far is increased patrol. What other solutions have been investigated in terms of supporting the community, dealing with the underlying issues of why these issues even exist in the first place? So I haven't heard anything from like the societal piece or the behaviors of the people. So what is being done other than increasing patrol?
Well, it's funny you should mention that, because one of the things that we're going to be having a conversation with next week with our deputy city manager, Deborah Collins, is about this issue and some others. Because some of these things, I believe, are tied to other issues that the police department can't fix. And Kate Gardner's a part of our conversation, and just accepted the meeting this next week. And it goes along with what I've been trying to say for the last couple of years, that the police department can always solve every kind of issue. We have to do some of the underlying causes that we need to address. And so that was not lost on us. It's certainly not lost on me, but it's been that way in my conversations for the last couple of years because of what I've seen in our crime stats in the city. Because I'd like to make those things be addressed so we don't have these kind of problems. So I'm not in with you. I just don't have anything to report. But that first conversation on that big time will start next week.
Can I ask something to that? We also are connecting with people like the same we see right here, Percy, and he's working in the communities and dealing with those types of things. They have a lot of programs, actually an ongoing thing called social responsibility, societal responsibility, and they are meeting with some of the parents, and he's also very involved with the gang, people who are trying to get out of gangs or stay away from gangs and all of that. And so we are connecting with other agencies because we can't do it alone. And so we got people like Percy, Michael J. We have Benny Evans, who is an officer, going into the neighborhoods to befriend people and doing things like that. So we'll definitely have a lot of other tentacles out there doing things. But I don't want to bring all those up. Our main concern today was just to kind of get some information about the shootings, because we know that's on everybody's mind right now. But we're definitely out there, and I'll give you my card, and you can contact me, and I'll tell you about all the other things that we're actually doing in the communities to, again,
Because
help.
in order to get information, you have to build relationships. In
Exactly.
order to build relationships, you have to deal with the underlying behaviors that are existing. And I just don't hear that. So if we could address that, that would be awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, we're doing a lot of community outreach, but it's not at the level that I know you're trying to get to, and it's not the level where I want to be. Because, policing can do a lot of things to restore public safety, but it doesn't necessarily deal with the underlying themes and issues that we see in the community. One of the things I've raised in several different forums in the past is the issue of the influence of substance abuse, the influence of mental health issues, the influence of coping skills, the influence of other things related to socioeconomic issues, and it's reflected, we're finding out in some of our data, which we'll make public once we finish the analysis. But, we're not going to walk away and just push it onto somebody else. We want to be part of the solution. And that's why we're having these conversations with some of our other partners beyond the ones that we're currently working with. For example, Kate Garvey and her folks work directly with us in investigation of persons crimes, so we can understand domestic violence issues and everything else and get people into treatment. But that doesn't solve all our problems. There are other underlying issues, and you've got our commitment to move forward on some of those. But as Don points out, the more immediate thing right now is we want to stop what's occurring in this neighborhood. Yes, sir.
Yeah, one concern I've had over a long time, even where I used to live, with the police follow-up, is once you do an arrest, that's usually the last you hear about. There isn't the kind of follow-through that I would like to see. Because maybe you have to work it with the prosecutor. And this person is going to trial on such and such a day. And it's a retiree and the President of Citizens Association. I might like that to show up and see what happens at that trial. Oh, he got probation. He'll be back out on the street. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
You need to see your responsibility to the community organization as extending all the way through sentencing. It's done with, for example, a year ago, we had pop, I think they counted 13 shots, some double-digit number of shots at Princess Square. And all that the police told us at the Citizens Association 4 or 5 months later is, we think we got the person for another shooting on Fayette Street. And don't worry, the shootings will go away. Well, it didn't go away. So I'm thinking, well, is this related to that one, or is it different, or what?
I can't speak to that shooting a year ago, but can you try to speak to your issue about getting forward? We should be able to give you what we can, but there are some things that we're not aware of in terms of what happens at the courthouse. Our job is basically to present cases to the Commonwealth Attorney or before the court, and they sometimes don't tell us. And so what I will do is I will do other conversations with the Commonwealth Attorney, Don Porter, and I will raise that issue with him as an interest to him. And he's very concerned about the community too. We've had conversations about the criminal justice system, certainly in the last couple of months for sure. And I think he'll be able to find a way to be able to inform us, and we can inform you and inform someone else. We know there's an interest in that. We generally have never done that as a profession, but we close the loop. Excuse me, close the loop. I'm not sure if it's the mic and the mouse that's driving me nuts right now, but bear with me if you wouldn't mind. But your point's well taken. So I will carry that forward in my conversation with Mr. Porter. And by the way, isn't Officer Barnes over there who Princess Square? I thought we have an officer there. And he's really one of our best officers, one of the good officers. He's been there for a long time. In fact, he's having a funeral there, I think it's next Tuesday, just as FYI. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry.
I just want to add a little piece to that if I could. So if the person that committed the offense is under the age of 18, they're considered a juvenile in Alexandria, and their information is going to stay confidential. So that would not be information available to the public, which they
Right,
can
but the
follow.
police would tell us that because they know when they're charging a juvenile.
Well, first of all, it's a good point. I mean, we haven't necessarily involved in juvenile, I'd say, if it's an arrest. We can't speak to the court information, and Percy's right, if it's a warrant, the communication of the juvenile, then we're really limited on what can be released on that for, I think, legitimate privacy reasons for a kid. Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry.
Okay, so based on what you said, I applaud your efforts that you're here and that the police is limited to some of the things they can do, and that there are definitely some underlying societal issues that we need to address. So I just want to challenge the mayor, the city manager, all your representatives, that you have to look at this. You should be looking at this in your budget as in a holistic approach. It's not just the community. I know it's important right here, but it's all over Alexandria. And you know, several people here, born and raised, have businesses in Alexandria. So we know what the struggle is. So we're here at these meetings, and it's time for us to take some action and to step up. So my challenge is to think about this, be logical about it. The demographics are changing, but don't neglect the marginalized group that can't talk and speak for themselves, like the young lady said. Excuse me, some people are scared and don't want to come forward. Excuse me, so please take that into consideration. And we know that the police department can't do everything, so we're not here to bad for anything, but everybody has a role to play to take blame and some of the things that's been going on. So we need to step up.
If I could respond to that, and I think with my colleagues and all the department heads, we've had conversations like that, which have been led by Mr. Jenks. I know the mayor and several members of the council have talked to me, recognizing this certainly past the, the post-Floyd killing incident and what we've lived through since that period of time. We have just decided, it's going to be part of our new plan for the 21st century, which we've had for 3 years. The updated plan is we're going to go over those neighborhoods, and we're going to have listening sessions, not presentations, and probably facilitated by some help with NOAA, with skilled facilitators, so we can understand what's actually the context of what's occurring in those neighborhoods.
Right, I mean, we have people.
I tell you what, give me your name, or I'll give you my card afterwards. The problem what we're trying to do is we're trying to hear people. Because, and it's not in a broad sense. I mean, if you think of this isn't just like one homeowner association, this is the neighborhood here. And we want to be able to do that all over the city, especially in the areas that we know we have issues, that, we get calls for. And they're not all phone calls. There's calls of quality of life calls and stuff like that, that, we want to be able to add context to, so we can put that into discussion for folks. I live in a lot of cities of my life, and I won't go here because my life here. But I will tell you, one thing I do love about this city is people really do care. You just need to do a little bit more, care more, and show more, and make it better. And that's across different parts of the city. Not just here. So that's the community you got from us going forward. There's certainly a plan that you're going to come out in August.
Because we do have, like right now, this is 3 generations right here, my mother, myself, and my daughter. So we are committed to the community, but we want you to hear us too. We want the city to hear us. And, I know people come, this is a transient place, but sometimes listen to the people who are here and who know and can help facilitate going into these communities and talking to people.
I got to tell you, that's how I learned more about this city. I've been here for 11 years, but I've listened to a lot of folks in the strangest places. And they tell me stories. And, I actually want you to see my face when I say this. Some of the stories are compelling, some of the stories are funny, but the stories all add context to the rich story of this city. And I do truly believe that's what makes us love this city. That's what makes us kind of down and impossible thunderstorms to have this conversation. And I will tell you, the police department here is, I've been around a lot of police departments. This police department really is good, and they start struggling in the last 6-7 years because of all the dialogue about negative policing. But, I'll tell you, when Dan says, or I want to do something, they go out there and they do it, and the hero will do it, the plan will do it, and they want to do the right thing. Our job is to kind of help them get there and guide them, and they're in respect, and, frankly, I'm hoping that they will with you. But I think I want to convey that because that's what I mean like a lot of cops. I know there's no badge that can second guessing their coaches, including me. But we're here because we care. And we're going to show up for work because they care. But we still got work to do. We're not going to give up. Okay? Okay. Any other questions?
I have a question. My business out in Alexandria. I was born in Alexandria, raised there with a school in Fairfax, graduated from here. But I own a business off Queen Street, and to see something, say something is quite, how do you propose to make that work? Is when you see something and you call. I've done that and said, well, I want it to be anonymous because if they come into your business, then they know exactly who's calling, and that has happened several times. So I'm at the point where I don't say anything. Because, like she said, you can have people, because they know it's you, retaliate because of you. And I've been called a snitch, actually.
That's okay. I've been told a snitch or two in my lifetime, too.
I am a snitch. I don't get stitches. It's clear.
Let me tell you, the reason I say something, we'll take an anonymous report, and we'll take that kind of information because that little piece of the puzzle may tie in with another piece of the puzzle. And those kinds of things will actually be surprised how when you do an investigation, you can close an investigation with pieces. But if you don't tell us things, then we have gaps. It's like putting a crossword puzzle together, folks. If you've ever done that and missing a piece, you never get something finished. So we need your help.
I agree with you, but it has to be, you have to feel secure that if I'm going to give you this information, that when I say, this is, this is confidential, or, it's a no see, I want to be anonymous, and they still walk directly, they park in front of your business, and they get out, and they walk in your business, and they talk to you. People standing right there.
I'm not going to Monica respond to that one. Monica, would you like to kind of talk about your protocols? Reassure?
So, I understand what you're saying about relationships. You've got to feel safe, No one here would want to give up information if you think you're going to get hurt on the long run. What I can say to you is this, because I can't promise you nothing's ever going to happen, right? I'd be standing up here lying before you, and I'm not going to do that. But what I can tell you is, if you want to talk to one of my guys, I will send, Detective Bertelli is assigned these cases for a reason. He's an ethical, he has so much integrity, and if you talk to him and you don't feel comfortable, don't say anything, right? I'm not ever going to say to anyone here, come tell us something so that then you can go home and be worried about you and your kids and the safety. What would be the point of doing that, right? It would help our case, but it's just going to make things worse for you and the community in the long run. What I would say is please stay, please meet with me. My name, if you guys want to take this down, I'll give you my cell phone number. I'll give you any way you can contact me. I will have you talk to my detectives, and I guarantee you, if you do not feel comfortable, you will remain anonymous, and you don't even have to say anything. They can't force you to tell them anything, right? So if you want to meet them somewhere else or talk on the phone to them, at least to meet them, to see if they quell those fears that you have, then I would say if you're comfortable doing that, if the fear is real and you have information, then we need to talk and see how we work through those.
Let me be clear about this. Fear never. Never fear for me. But my point being is so like, I don't live in Alexandria, but I work here. So I leave work sometimes at 9, 12, 1 in the morning, and there's nobody out there. So let me. I'll be the only car on the block. And I can't have my 6 o'clock. You know what I'm saying? So if someone, they know I'm awake, I'm just left out like a city dog. Especially if they come in and they see them coming in and talking to me and they're leaving, you can put one and one together, and that's my point. So how do you make it safer to even want to be able to reach out and do that?
So first we need contact, right? You guys have to feel safe to contact one of us, whether that's by phone, by email, whatever. If you're not comfortable meeting with anyone in the neighborhood, which I would highly say don't ever do that, we'll meet with you somewhere else. We'll meet with you outside of the city. We'll meet with you a place of your choosing. And like I said, no one needs to talk to anyone if they don't feel comfortable. You can't live in your homes 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365, and not feel safe. The worst feeling I would have is sending my kids out to the playground and wondering if I'm going to get payback with my kid on the slide, right? We can't have that. So you need to make that first introduction, whether it's to me or to one of my detectives. But I beg you, call me. We will meet you somewhere of your choosing, far away from here. Have a real-life conversation with that detective. And if you're comfortable, fine. If you're not comfortable, we're not going to force the issue with you, okay? Your safety is the most important thing to us. The cases will make another way if we have to, okay? Do you guys want me to give you my number or my email? You guys want to write that down? Or do you want me to send something out to the neighborhoods, or how would you like me to do that? Yeah, I'll have it and I'll give it to you guys afterwards. But does that answer your question? Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
We can talk through it. You're never going to feel comfortable unless we sit down and we talk. And it doesn't have to be the police station or at your home or at the neighborhood.
I guess for me, the concern was that when I called, it was like during the day, so they sent the squad car out during the day while people were standing there. So, and they're sitting there smoking weed, passing pills, this, that, and the third, and then he walks in, and then walks out, and then like 20 minutes later, it's like, yeah, I heard you call the police, and I'm like, well, now I'm not a liar, because I'm quick to go, now if I said it, I said it. But I was like, nah, he had the wrong address.
No, I promise you we would never do that. I mean, that's something, if you call one minute, I've never sent to the squad car, anyone in uniform, anyone even decked out with a badge on them if you want. But I would highly suggest we find a place outside of the neighborhood to meet, and we can do that. And you have to feel comfortable with us. If you don't trust us in the long run, don't talk to us. At least give us that chance. I beg you, give us that chance.
Absolutely, because they work just like I do. They out there at 8 o'clock on the corner, they got a lunchtime, and they come back and then they go home just like I go home. I mean, they do have hours just like I have hours, but stuff that I see out there, it's just like, I don't know if I'm gonna call and be like, hey, you need to come, because instead of them just coming to see what's going on out there, they come directly into my business before approaching what you see is going on, you know, it's an issue, it's a problem.
You know, when it's in the protocol, a lot of times that's because the communication is gone through our communication dispatch center, which is not the police department. And if you're going to call and you need that special treatment, you need to tell them, hey, look, don't show up, because the officer doesn't know. He's just got a call, he's rolling on the call, he or she shows up, they're just trying to figure out what the story is. And now they're getting us whatever's picked up by the call taker or emergency communications. What Mike was talking about is those cases, when you want to talk to an investigator, and even if you don't know the name of the investigator, but you know the case, and you have information, it should give you the number to call, and you can find them on our page, call and say, hey, I need to talk about something that I think you need to know about. We'll find a home for it. We'll find out where it belongs. But if you call 911 on very sensitive things, and you're worried about the police showing up right there in your community, you need to tell the dispatcher or the call taker, because then the officers will be sensitive to that. When I've seen that, I think every one of us at one point in time was going across somebody that says, I want to tell you something, I'm not going to tell you here. And you say, okay, and where do you want to meet? I've met up in Shirlington, I've met up in Arlington, I've met up in Annandale, I've met up in Mount Vernon, to talk to people about stuff happening in the city. And I know Don's doing the same thing, Martha, we're doing it at one point or another. We want you to feel comfortable talking to us. And we don't want to put you in any threat or danger period. So tell us. I've been shut down again. I'm talking to us, as my daughters would say. Okay, does that help with some?
It does, yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, yes, ma'am.
How many officers do you have on the streets at one time? In essence,
Depends on the one time.
in the daytime, during the nighttime?
Over here,
After 6 o'clock, I think I changed shifts, what, 7 o'clock, 4 o'clock?
we have about 137 officers that patrol, that are assigned to patrol. We have them work on one side, which we call half work on the other. We have 5 shifts, and we overlap. And so at any particular time, we can do those person, and we're fully staffed. We will have anywhere from around 18 to 22 officers out there. Really, as many as 37 in the evening hours, depending on the day. So, I mean, we've got a lot of officers. We have 15 square miles city. We have certain areas that are no problem running to the city for the reasons that we discussed earlier. We try not to be oppressive in there, but we want to be able to be in the area. And we will be having the same conversation with some of those communities too, because we want to make sure we understand what's going on.
Do you have enough funding and manpower?
Yeah, like I mentioned before, the city is really good to us, and we'll certainly take whatever we need, but we also say there's any challenges for the city, especially right now with the COVID-19 thing, as we all know. But our issue is we are working real hard, we're out there and covering it every day, we're showing up for work. That is a tough time doing this job right now, because they are doing these masks for the shift, they're 11.5-hour shift. They're going to do what they need to. And occasionally, we had some stage issues. We had one time we had to take the whole shift on, 15 people, in the quarantine because of exposure. And we were facing the detectives and everybody else, and some of the sheriff's cops officers were out there. And we did it, and nothing was done. And that's how flexible we can be, and I think we're starting, it's fun. We keep our fingers crossed that we don't have another mass exposure when we deploy. Any other questions, thoughts, comments? Thanks, go ahead.
I'm sure you probably can't see me from the back, right past the room. Got a little behind it. I sat down next to both of you and gave you both my cards because I want to come out and talk to you both individually. And for your question, what came to my mind was, the first thing that popped in my head was anonymous tips. Maybe that's something that we need to talk about. Maybe that's something that we need to be able to say, you know, they got an app for everything. These kids come up with apps. Maybe that's something that we need to look at, because you're right. I agree wholeheartedly with you. You don't want nobody coming to your business if you know you're the one that called the police on them. And they know once they see you go in there. So maybe that's something we need to look at from internally, that maybe we need to, because I get it. I'm not going to call the police either. But I can tell you, all these different shootings, my phone never stops ringing. And there's more people in the community, and I tell them, I'm not going to tell the detective who you are, I'm just going to tell them what you told me, and I'm going to relay the names and the information that you provided to me. And I always tell the detectives, it's your job to go out and do the work. Okay? I'll give you enough information from the community, but I'm not going to put the community at risk for us to do our job. Now, if it's something, you know, if it ranges in the area of homicide, I'll probably have to give them a little more detailed information. But guys standing on the corner, I think there was your question in the back. I felt bad hearing your question, because I'm that guy that drove past before. Because what I was doing for a while, I know the guys that hang on that corner, but I thought of it as, I know the same guys that hang out on King Street every Friday and Saturday night. Do I get to stop them like I get to stop them? So that's where that, if you think of the frame of mind, I got you. You think of the frame of mind of, am I going to be accused of racial profiling them because they're standing on the corner? So what I started doing, and I actually brought it up to my sergeant, I said, I got to figure out a way to get into that neighborhood, because that's not my neighborhood. So what I started doing was I'd pull up on the block, and I'd just sit there, and they migrated over to Montgomery. So we went around the block 4 times, and then we went in the alley. And then my dispatch call sent me somewhere, and about 30 minutes later it was shooting. So when you say that cop that drives past, that cop's probably thinking in the frame of mind, right now the climate is not right for us. If I stop a group of guys on the street, they're looking for the confrontation. And literally, why am I stopping them again? They're just standing on the corner. I can go down to King Street Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and they're standing on the corner. And I understand the concept. So when you see that cop driving by, like somebody said, missing the 3 that sit in the post office parking lot, I can explain that, because I was one of those guys that sat in the parking lot. It might have been a while since they did it, but when I sit in the parking lot and I got to put my head down on that computer, I'm not waiting for somebody to back up. I'm going to back up to that brick wall. I know that nobody's coming through that wall, and I got a safe area where I can do that report at. And I did a civic association meeting last night, and I thought about this as I came here. I think what we have to understand in law enforcement, and I will throw it back on us, we have to start explaining better what we do, and stop thinking that the community knows what we do. And at the same hand, I invite everybody that participated tonight to be a part of our Citizens Academy, because it'll tell you some of the things that we're doing. At the same time, it gives you an inside look at what goes on in the police department. And it's not just for adults. We got a young officer, Billy McNaughton, that runs a youth Citizens Academy. And it's excellent because it'll explain some of the things from the youth side of the house, what goes on. Because, again, folks don't know what we do. The question is still being asked, why did it take 5 of y'all to stop one car? And I sat there last night for a half an hour and explained to a group of 20 people of the Civic Association, and I said, it's not that. Let me go through it and explain to you. And I've seen the emails for the past day, and it's been, thank you. Last night, you explaining that made it a lot better for me. My captain is here, my chief is here, my deputy chief's here, and my mentor is in the back somewhere. I'm starting to learn a different way of policing, because I'm starting to look at different ways of policing. I'm not chasing nobody 5 blocks, but we got a 25-year-old that will chase them. I'm going to be the guy sitting in the neighborhood waiting for the phone call to come in, and they say, who's running in the 900 block? Okay, I'll drive around it. So you got to think about, we have young cops coming into this career, and when they come out of the academy, all they know is, it's time to work. They're not thinking of those little things that the community is looking at, driving past a group of 5 guys. That young cop's going to stop, and he's going to say, what y'all doing out here? That might start a confrontation right now. So for the 2 of you, and I have more cards, but we only have a stack of cards in my trunk. If If you will send me an email or text message, I'm hard about answering the phone. I have serious phone anxiety. But if you actually email me or text me, I'll respond back to you, and I'll actually come out to your shop and talk to you about particularly that call for service when you need to call in, because if it's that much of a problem, call me. I live in the city, I have no problem coming out here. She's got a deep pocket, he will pay me every time I come out here. Okay?
And I gotta tell you, you really text your dad, because if you text me at 2 in the morning, you're not surprised when I text the dad. But then I also say, we smoke about that for going to the world, too, but we use pencil and paper, we didn't have computers back then either. Yes, yes, ma'am.
Officer Gurney, can you give us a brief synopsis of why it does take 5 officers?
I have no problem explaining that. I did it last night, so it's kind of early. One cop sees a traffic violation, pull a car over. When we pull a car over, the first thing we say is, hey, dispatch, this is where I'm at, this is who I'm with, and I'm with a black car or whatever, and this is the tag number. I don't know who I stopped. I have no idea. I looked at the tag. That person in that car don't know why I stopped them, but they got whatever they got in their head. Now, the person in that car don't know that I've already told the dispatch and probably every other officer in this city that has a radio on that I'm on a traffic stop. It happens more at nighttime because night is our difficult time. What happens is every officer that hears there's somebody close by, we're just going to ride by and check on them. Okay, if I run that tag number and that tag number comes back to a suspended driver, I'm going to probably flag that other officer down and say, hey, stay with me. And that person might get on the radio and say, look what I told me I was Unit 215 on this traffic stop at King and Union. So now, everybody's eyebrows are raised up because we got to protect each other. It's only so many of us out here. So that one dispatch call that I'm on because I generated that traffic stop has now gotten every officer in the, say, the Old Town area, in the Old Town area thinking, let me swing by there and check on it. So now you got 5, 6 officers just coming on and check. So 1 or 2 of us might stay just because. Especially if I see a second car there, I'm probably going to stop because I'm like, okay, something different about this. Most of the time you see a cop do this or they'll flag you on. We hate that as an older cop. We hate when young cops tell us, go on, because you don't know who you stopped. Now, in relation to we don't know who we stopped, this happened in Maryland a couple of years ago. State trooper went to pull a guy over for speeding, had no idea. Guy took off from the scene, they pursued him, crashed the car, got the guy out of the car, basically, why did you run? That's it. The cops didn't know he had just killed his mother and she was in the trunk of a car. Okay, so he's thinking in his mind, I fled because they know my mom's in the trunk. You know, the old man in the city bound. That guy got stopped because of cop. He didn't know he blew a building. Only thing he knew was that tag on that Lincoln was expired. So we don't know what we're getting into. So we come and look for each other and make sure we're safe. Once I get there and confirm everything's good, I might sit there. Depends on the car volume. I might sit there for a while. Yes, ma'am.
So I have 2 comments. One, I'm a mother of 4 black sons, so I appreciate that you just don't randomly stop my sons because they're not doing anything. They're just doing what they're supposed to do. So I appreciate that in some instances. The question is, how do you really differentiate that, right? But my second point is, like, I understand if there's a suspended license, but my husband and I have been pulled over for just a typical speeding thing. The officer stands there. I'm like, is there a reason you're standing by my window? I don't have to talk to you. You know, so I mean, respect should go both ways, right? Where, like, at least explain to me why you're standing this close to my window when my husband is the one that's driving.
Again, it's one of those things that for us, and I'll let the big guys explain it, but for us, it's not that I want to be that close to you. I want to live in that car.
Well, then just ask to look in the car.
Yeah,
but this is the thing. I understand you guys want to protect each other,
right.
but it's demeaning and devaluing because I'm an upstanding citizen. So for you just to assume that there's something going on in my car, or that I'm a potential threat to you, I don't understand. And so hopefully the next class you give, Mr. Benny, you can explain, like, what can I do to let the officer know? Like, should I be like, hey, just search me right now because there's nothing going on. My husband just liked to push the car really fast, you know? So what can I do so that I don't have to, because it's traumatic for me, regardless of George Floyd. It's traumatic for me to have an officer to stand there and refuse to even dialogue with me as a human being, and to give me the respect to even answer my question.
Is that the officer on the passenger side?
Yes.
Okay. That officer's coming up and he's literally a backup officer. And normally when I'm on the traffic, for instance, I'm on the traffic stop and the chief happened to be on the way to get some donuts and he see me on the traffic stop. Right? So, yeah, Jerry does that.
He will stop and back Benny up. He's like, stop.
Because I don't do that being traffic stop. So, like something really wrong here. So, our training teaches us from the academy, if you're the backup officer, you don't say nothing. You just keep quiet and you do exactly what needs to be done. And that's watching the people in the cars and watching for anything that's other than normal. I might be handling a traffic stop on there and he's just standing there. One of the best memories I have in my law enforcement career was Chief Samara. I was on a traffic stop as a new officer and I looked over the roof of the car and the chief was standing on the other side. I'm going, the chief actually backing me up on the traffic? Said nothing, just stood there. But if you start talking to him, he's probably not going to talk to you because he's doing that observation in the vehicle.
So who can communicate that to me? Because I'm
The officer that's at the driver's door.
that officer wouldn't talk to me either. So
That's something we'd have to discuss further, but I can tell you again, it falls in that line of we have, as law enforcement, have to start explaining what we do better. And, you know, I don't want to throw my captain under the bus, but I'm probably going to pay for this later. I hope it's not in push-ups, but it's kind of like, I think the young lady sitting there asked my captain about an incident that happened yesterday, and she said she couldn't talk about it because it's a police investigation. And I said, because I've been on calls, I had a young lady completing suicide in the park, and I had somebody call me, come by and ask me, hey, what's going on? I said, we're working with suicide. Is there something wrong with me telling that? I'm not going to tell you who it is, I'm not going to tell you what it is, I'm not going to tell you nothing else. I'm just going to tell you basic because by the time you get home, it's already on Facebook, the media's going to get hold of it. Right? So the question she asked, I would have just like, but that's my captain back there. And I want to do push-ups in the ring right now. So, again, we as law enforcement, we're starting to learn this thing differently because now we're starting to realize we need to start articulating what we're doing better to the community because now the community is asking questions about us. When you hear defunding and abolishing police departments, I've asked the question, what do you mean by that? And I want the Alexandria definition. I don't want the California definition. So we have to start articulating better as well as the community has to start articulating that information back to us. And I get the thing about not wanting to tell us about incidents. The young lady in here earlier mentioned something about his, what is it, ring camera? A ring camera of a video of something that happened. And I'm going, send it to me. I just had a young lady earlier today sent me another video, and I was like, okay. And I told her, I said, well, it's anonymous. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and take it to the person that needs to look at it, and then we'll go from there. Well, they read my name. Well, you always want to be anonymous, but, you know, that's how it works. So, again, this is one of those things that we have to start putting that information out there. That's where the Citizens Academy comes in, because then you can ask those questions. You'll see the cops. And don't be afraid of the cops in your neighborhood. If you got a cop in your neighborhood that you see, stop and say, hey, look, I have a question. Why, you know, I call the police, and they'll come run up in my clothes asking me a question. You know, then you make me look bad because now these people know I'm the one that called the police on you. Okay? So we need to hear that, because I know when I'm going back, and I'm probably going to answer the question differently, because I'm probably going to go back to our Department of Communications. And I'm going to say, the Department of Emergency Communications, hey, make sure I put that in the call, that this lady don't see the police. And that's a different incident from the police department. We get our direction from the Department of Emergency Communications when those calls come out. So the officers are sitting on the screen. So now we have to go back to that department, talk to their director and say, hey, just for future reference, make sure these officers know, don't go to this lady's business because she don't want to be seen, she don't want to be targeted. Okay? I can get right in and we'll be out to about 10 o'clock. So I'm going to give us, move back to the chief, because I know they're not going to pay me past 10.
I think even though we're trying to have deep pockets, sometimes I think my neighbor was sitting down to do Really just also said, this department, our department, and even these departments like we have, really strict policies on racial profiling. And, the business has changed considerably since I first started, but the expectations sometimes have it, like in the discussions that we had earlier in the evening, where you say, the kids are over there, and go over and talk to the kids. You can't watch people anymore. You gotta treat people with respect. And we talk to our people about that, even before they go to the academy. They come into our office, we talk to them about departmental culture, we talk about departmental expectations. I get a chance to talk to them, and I talk about 21st century policing. Don speaks to them, and we talk about earning the respect for the community we serve. And so part of that, we have to have what Benny's talking about, which is really reasonable suspicion that something's going on. We talk to somebody in the corner of the night. It doesn't mean we can't go and say hi. And, and part of that is being able to feel comfortable with each other, the community and the police. And I will say, as far as this department goes, and it has been, certainly as I've been told in the last 10 years, but certainly in the last 3 years, we work hard at that. That doesn't mean we can't do better. And I'll give the mic up to Benny anytime, and some of his colleagues, because you're hearing from them. They want this to work. I'm just the chief. They're the ones that are out there. And believe it or not, I think they worry about it when I make a stop, a traffic stop, because they think I'm probably too old to do it. But we do back each other up. And there are protocols. They're not always designed just to intimidate, they're designed to make sure it's a safe encounter. But getting back to the info, you tell us, talk to us, that's all we're asking. I mean, because we want this to be a safe area here, like in other parts of the city. We can't do it by ourselves. We need all of us to work together. And we can be very respectful in terms of your desires, your safety, your protection, your anonymity. There are ways we can do that. But you gotta help us. Yeah, because, otherwise, as Don pointed out earlier, we're going to drive down the block, and guess what? When something will happen, that's not a good thing. You got to talk to us. You're on eyes and ears, and we're part of the team in this community, as we are in other parts of the city. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
I'm like Mr. Benny. I could be out here all night as well. But I want to applaud Officer Talafair. He's our RPO where I live. However, we had a town hall conference call with Mr. Pettigrew and our staff, and they complained because they said they don't see enough of him. And I know, because I've been living here for all my life, all the 44 years, that with RPOs, you send them in different departments of your police department. But with RPOs, if you're trying to bridge a gap between the police department and the community, you need to let the RPOs work their block, work their community, because that's where they matter the most.
Sure, you understand that? Good question. I have any ideas what the community is staying open? Because I don't. Right again. One of the things I want you guys to understand is that we're not going to lie to you. Okay? We're not perfect. And we do make mistakes. And we try to work on those. The reason why anyone has not been in the neighborhood lately is because when the chief said that we had basically this outbreak into the department, and the officers, the cops officers to go and work beats, he was one of them. He also was on our SOT team. He also, he has a lot of other things he was doing. And it was registered to me, basically, that he was not in his neighborhood. I got a, what we call a 311 call on that. Somebody said in that they have not seen Officer Telefair in the neighborhood lately. And when I got that, I went back, and that's why I knew what he was doing, because I went back and found out that he was doing all these other things. And so we said, okay, now we need to cut him loose. Why? Because we have a problem in the neighborhood. He needs to get back in his neighborhood. So again, we learned from that. I'm not saying that he still won't be pulled out to do something else one time, but we're going to try to make sure that we keep them in the neighborhood as much as possible. But that's what really happened.
Can we keep it going now?
Yes.
This didn't start with Aaron.
Right.
This started a long time before he came in there.
Exactly.
So let's just try to keep it going. Now, I have a good relationship with him. So, I communicate with him about a lot of stuff that goes on in my neighborhood or that I have questions or concerns about. Not everybody's comfortable, and even in the meeting, we had people say, I don't even know who he is. How do you not know who he is? That was my main concern.
Right.
Like, he's visible enough, but just because I see him, I live in the back of him. We see each other every day. The people on Fed Street might not see him because they only outside at 10 o'clock at night or during the daytime, maybe watching their kids outside play. I don't know. But that's just my thing. Like, I know he usually says, I'll be out here. Now I've seen him lately. He's out talking to the kids, walking the neighborhood, and I have to applaud all of you guys for working during COVID-19.
Right, and I can't be back there because someone said something. Again, we need to do what we have to do, but we don't know the impact that it was actually having in the community. Once it was registered to us, guess what? We adjusted. And that's what we do. We always try to make the best decision we can with the information that we have at the time. And that's all we can do. And so that's why he's back, and we're going to leave him there as long as he can be there. Okay?
And I'm probably guilty of that because there have been a couple times where Aaron's got stuff with helping me with Meals on Wheels deliveries. And so, Aaron, you're on your own, you're going to just have to stay home, but you got to find somebody else.
Hey, let's do that. We have people that come over that would love to help out.
There you go. There you go. Let's put that on the plan. I'll tell you, the thing is, I hate to use the phrase, it takes a village, but it really does take a community to work together to make this stuff happen. And you've got my commitment. I know the police department wants to make this commitment to make this happen. And let's do this. Let's fix this for this community. Not just here, we're going to try and do this all over the city.
Right.
Because if nothing else, the last 7-8 weeks has caused us a lot of introspection. We've gone through a lot of pain and suffering in this profession, and these men and women have done it too, but I'm proud of these folks. You should be very proud of them too. And they're very committed, and we're going to make this work, and we're going to do better. Every time we go through this process as a profession, we come out better on the other end if we're honest about it. And I am very serious about this, and these folks know this too, and they're serious about it, but they've talked to me. So, hold us accountable, but be open to us, and make sure that you let us know when you need help by any means, and help us deal with some of these issues we're facing in this community. Are there any other questions at all? I know it's raining. I really appreciate you guys coming out. And I hope this conversation was good. We'll come back out if you need us, okay? Okay? We'll give you an update on how we're doing. Michael, Gray, thank you very much for your help out here with the trail system. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. And thanks everybody for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.